Why play Sett top? Well, firstly, he's a solid laner with good sustain. He's one of the best team fighters in the game. He's deceptively tanky and quite difficult to kill, as well as not having any mana to worry about. However, you are susceptible to being kited, and as the game goes on, there's lots of champions who will start to win duels against you. Sett's passive is his right hook. This means every second auto attack comes out faster and deals additional damage. He also gains health regen based on his missing health. Sett's Q is an auto attack reset which makes his next 2 attacks deal additional damage. In addition, when Q is activated, you gain movement speed while running towards a champion. Sett's W has a passive where he stores damage received as grit, which fills up his secondary bar. The active makes him throw a large punch which deals damage and gives Sett a shield. The damage and shield are increased depending on how much grit was stored. Also, champions in the middle of the punch take the damage as true damage rather than physical. Sett's E pulls enemies in front and behind him into him. This deals damage, makes them airborne and slowed. If Sett pulls an enemy from both in front and behind him, all enemies are stunned for 1 second upon landing. Sett's ultimate grabs a champion before carrying them into the air and slamming them down. This deals a large amount of damage to the champion carried as well as all enemies they were slammed into. In addition, any enemies that got slammed into are slowed. For Masteries, take this. It lets you be a true bruiser. For build order, start Doran's Blade or Shield with Pot. Build this into Hullbreaker, Tier 2 Boots and Stride Breaker. Following this, get your Titanics and a Sterak's Gauge. Finally, finish your build with any of these as needed. Also, if it's not a split pushing game, skip Hullbreaker and buy another item from the last line instead. For skill order, take E, then Q, then W, before maxing Q, then W, then E, taking ult whenever you can. For summoner spells, take Flash and Ignite. Teleport also works well. During the lane phase, there aren't that many champions that want to fight you early. Your passive just has too much damage and too much sustain. Look to force fights early to try and build a good lead. The way to do this is to get on top of your enemy and then land 2 auto attacks followed into a Q reset for 2 more auto attacks. When they're trying to flee, then pull them back in with E. And then when they look to flee again, throw a huge W at them. This is absolutely ridiculous damage and has a great chance of securing the kill just by itself. However, you do lack mobility, so when playing this aggressive, make sure you're warding well. Every time you kill your opponent or force them out of lane, try to get tower plate gold. Sett takes towers incredibly fast between his passive and his Q reset. Entering the mid game, you want to extend your strong early game. Look to push your lane in and take tower as early as possible. This will give you amazing pressure on your top side. Use this pressure to take enemy jungle camps, get priority on heralds and dragons, or gank mid to try and get 2 lanes ahead. With their top pushed in, their top's going to respond to all of this stuff way slower than you can. Following this, look to force fights around objectives. You are easily one of the best team fighters in the game. If you ult their tank into their team and then get an easy AoE stun off while amongst their team, you can win fights immediately. Otherwise, if you're not needed to hard engage, your ability to ult something away from one of your carries and then E them after can keep your carries alive so much longer than theirs will be. Entering the late game, you're looking to play very similar to the mid game. You can solo win the game for your team, firstly by getting a pick. With your CC and damage, there's not much that gets away from you. Otherwise, you can solo win the game for your team by slamming that frontline tank into their backline for insane AoE damage and a pretty easy fight.